Hey everybody, it's Mike, and welcome to Chip Damage. And today we're going to be doing my most requested video. If you don't know, a few months back, I decided to do a video that overlooked my anime collection, my physical anime collection. Now, while I started this channel as a mostly gaming-centric channel, I'm a nerd in many areas, if you don't know. Not just gaming, but like anime, movies, comics, manga, what have you. So I just kind of want to display what I have, share it with the audience, and see what you guys had to say. Well, lo and behold, it became one of my more popular videos, and I got a ton of responses. And it was kind of a microcosm of what I want this channel to be. There was tons of comments asking me questions about where I got this, how much it was, and it was really fun engaging with you guys as an audience over that video. And I also learned a ton. I got tips on when certain releases were coming out in the future, like, hey, this came out in the US, this has a DVD release, Blu-ray, VHS, you have to import this. So it was a very cool, like, kind of two-way street there, and a very cool experience that I would like to continue. Now, like I said, that video was a few months ago. I apologize for that. Life gets in the way. Adulting kind of sucks. It takes a while to put together some of these older videos, dig some stuff out of the collection. But I decided to finally, get it done. And this is going to be part 2 of the overlook of my anime collection. And there's definitely going to be a part 3. But we're going to be going over a meaty chunk of the collection today. So please join me as we go over more of my anime collection today in this part 2 video. And to get the YouTube stuff out of the way, please like and subscribe if you like what you're about to see. And if you haven't seen that prior video, please check it out. And please be on the lookout for part 3 after this video goes up. So one of the more common questions I saw in the thread of that last video was, hey, do you have any Dragon Ball? Like, it's one of the biggest anime, if not the most popular anime in the world. And I didn't really share anything on it. Well, my answer is I'm a millennial that grew up in the United States. Of course I was a Dragon Ball Z fan growing up. It wasn't the first anime I ever saw. Can't really quite recall what that was. Maybe watching Speed Racer or Voltron at like 6 in the morning back in the day. But Dragon Ball hooked me just like it did many kids my age and still hooks kids to this day and age. I mean, there's just something universal about Dragon Ball. And when I was old enough to finally start purchasing media and I got a DVD player, well, when they started releasing Dragon Ball Z, I just had to have it. So, starting with the OG, let's go in chronological order. In the US, Dragon Ball, the first series, the first part of the Dragon Ball manga, was premiered after DBZ. So I actually saw, like many Americans, Dragon Ball, Goku's earlier years, after Dragon Ball Z. And I enjoyed it. It's a very different type of anime, but I wouldn't disregard it. It's much more mystical and like kind of magical in nature, but it's also much more focused on pure martial arts. So if you've been avoiding Dragon Ball Z, but you're a big fan of like 60s, 70s, 80s, like Hong Kong action movies, Kung Fu movies, Dragon Ball's up your alley. And I loved it. So Funimation released a number of these sets for Dragon Ball, which I have the full collection of here, as you can see. And there were 4 of these for Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball, I believe, is about, 5. About not quite as long as Dragon Ball Z, but it's still a pretty beefy series. So you have to get 5 sets to get the whole series, but we got that right here. And, from what I've seen of these sets, they're good quality. It's not quite as cropped as the Dragon Ball Z DVDs as we're about to go over. Please don't hang me if I have that incorrect, but I've never seen too many people complaining about cropped Dragon Ball, like OG Dragon Ball in these DVD releases. And I believe these have been re-released in similar sets afterwards, but I'm unsure if it's actually been re-released on Blu-ray as Dragon Ball Z has, because Dragon Ball not being quite as popular in the US. But Dragon Ball, you got to give it some love. It's OG, started in 1984. You got to give it some love. I mean, this is where it all started. It started a franchise, that took over the world. Love the covers. You got young Goku, you got King Piccolo, Master Roshi being all buff, Krillin, and of course on the first, you got super young Goku. And just to show you how these kind of unfold, they're kind of cool. So you take the slip cover off, and they each have, disc came free on that one. They come like this. They're pretty easy to get these discs out. You don't have to fight them. They don't like get damaged as you pull them out. I hate sets like that. It's a simple pull. And yeah, these are still fairly common. I think these are still produced. I don't think there's been a newer Blu-ray set, like I said, but I could be incorrect. It's been a while since I've checked, but I have no issues with these. Like I said, this release came out after the Dragon Ball set, Dragon Ball Z set that we're about to look at. But yeah, gotta give some love to OG Dragon Ball series and to the much lesser known movie set. Here's another Funimation release. This is actually kind of hard to find right now. Dragon Ball, as some people don't know, had 4 of its own movies. They're okay. This set has all 4 of them. As you can see, it's Curse of the Blood Rubies, Mystical Adventure, Sleeping Princess and Devil's Castle, and The Path to Power. I've only seen these once many, many years ago. But as I saw the set, I wanted to have all of Dragon Ball, and I wanted to pick it up. Like I said, Dragon Ball, more lighthearted, more focused on martial arts and like adventure. Great series, you know, for kids, but still fun and nostalgic to go back and look at. So you can pick up the 5 Funimation Blu-ray or DVD box sets and the DVD movie set of 4. But I believe this is somewhat harder to get now. Correct me if I'm wrong if there's newer releases on actual Dragon Ball, like OG Dragon Ball. And since those are the blue box animation, Funimation sets, of course, I have the famous and somewhat infamous orange box Dragon Ball Z DVD sets. Now, there are a total of 9 of these bad boys. These are very cool. These are somewhat divisive, and as I grab this monstrous set, these are somewhat divisive amongst Dragon Ball Z fans because these have some pluses and minuses with later releases. Dragon Ball Z has been re-released many, many times on DVD, on Blu-ray after this, but this was the set that I was getting and I stuck with it because, like I said, I am an American. I grew up watching Dragon Ball Z on Toonami, and that meant I listened to a very different soundtrack than the rest of the world. I listened to a soundtrack that was done by a man named Bruce Falconer, I've also heard said, who totally redid the music for Dragon Ball Z. It has a very tinny metal, like heavy metal, like rock sound, and that might sound silly to some of you, but I loved it. I love that soundtrack to death. It is what I heard when I was younger, and it really stuck with me. And anything else just doesn't sound like Dragon Ball. So this set has that music as an option. You can listen to the original Japanese music, which is fantastic in its own right, but it doesn't sound right to me. And I know I'm wrong. You can hang me for that, you know, Americans dicing up you know, Japanese media. But I enjoyed that music. I really did. Vegeta's theme, the heavy bells, you know, the Frieza theme when he's getting hit by the spirit bomb. It's fantastic. However, there was a set released after this called the Dragon box set. They were larger box sets, and what they did was increase the aspect ratio. So the problem with these is that when Dragon Ball was aired on television, it was cropped. The top and bottom was cut a little bit out of the image. And that's what you're seeing when you get these. You're not getting the full picture. It's actually quite hard to find releases that have that full picture. It doesn't bother me so much. But that later Dragon box set does not have the Falconer soundtrack. And I have to ask myself, like, is it worth me rebuying this entire series just for that extra couple centimeters at the top and bottom of the image? I'm not sure. When I watch something like The Simpsons on Disney Plus, I can't stand it. But since I'm used to the crop Dragon Ball, it didn't bother me as much as the completely different soundtrack. That soundtrack really controls the tone and the mood. More Americanized, sure, but I love it. And this is the Dragon Ball Z set that, of course, I enjoy, and I watch. But let me know, what are your thoughts on this? There's more recent Blu-ray releases, but the cleaner Dragon Ball Z looks, the worse it kind of gets. I love Dragon Ball Z grainy and dirty, and I think that's how it should be. I don't like Dragon Ball Z Kai. Dragon Ball Z Kai is like just a Frankenstein's monster of Dragon Ball Z episodes, like chopped together with like weird animation that they say is better in the middle. I like OG Dragon Ball Z to this day. I listen to the original English dub, the the Funimation dub. Well, I guess there's the Ocean dub before that, but this set is the Funimation dub, like Sean Schlemel as Goku and Chris Sabat as Vegeta. This would be the set to get for that, and if you want to hear that Falconer music. So yeah, the Dragon Ball Z, what these are commonly known online as, is the orange boxes. Very different than the Dragon boxes. And this is the set that I have. I'll probably rebuy this series in higher format, like Blu-ray or 4K if they ever release it one day. But I'm really hoping it has that American soundtrack. Because to me, to many Americans, it's just not Dragon Ball without that hard rock and weird, melodramatic rock music. But sticking with Dragon Ball, it's not just the series, baby. Not just all 291 episodes. No, you have to have all 13 movies. Yes, also released by Funimation, and 3 box sets were the Dragon Ball movies, the non-canon Dragon Ball movies. Throughout the years, if you don't know, they released a bunch of Dragon Ball movies straight to theaters, and then, in Japan. And some of these were aired on Toonami on television here in the U.S., particularly the first 3, which are my favorite. That's Dead Zone, World's Strongest, and Tree of Might. My old Toonami faithful know, they replayed those movies like twice a month on the network back then. So yeah, it goes all the way up from the first one with Dead Zone all the way up to the last one, Wrath of the Dragon. Some cool box art. They each come individually kind of packaged, which I really appreciate. You get some cool artwork on these. And the movies, These are weird. Like, they're so tonally different. Like, they're just long episodes with these, like, one-off villains. Like, of course, this is where Broly premiered. And, you know, he's probably the most popular thing to come out of the movies. But they're fun. Like, they don't make a lot of sense. And, like, the plots are really silly. But Dragon Ball in itself is kind of really silly. But, you know, it's Dragon Ball media that you might want to check out. Canon be damned. So you can still pick this up. I believe this is relatively cheap. It was cool to have 13 movies kind of like in these 3 box sets. This is kind of the Brawly one right here. You know, in the Cooler movie, speaking of music, if you bought the Return of Cooler movie on VHS or DVD when it was first released in the United States, it had the weirdest music dub I've ever heard. Much like how the music was changed in the television show, they put a different sound music track in that movie, and it was Deftones, the band Deftones, and Disturbed over Dragon Ball Z. So it was like an AMV, like an anime music video, but official. Very bizarre. Kind of cool. But yeah, you can get that all here in these 3 movie sets. Now, the next thing is the last piece of Dragon Ball Z, regular Dragon Ball Z media, and that is this set here, the Blu-ray release, the double release of History of Trunks and Father of Bardock. This is expensive now, last time I checked. These are OVAs, not quite movies, not quite episodes, TV specials, if you don't know. They are what they are, the title says they are. The History of Trunks, that's future Trunks before he came back to the present time in the Dragon Ball universe. Like that one a lot. And then there's the History of Bardock. Also enjoy that. History of Goku's father before he was killed by Frieza and the planet was blown up. Strangely, yeah, this is not in any of the movie sets or the DVD sets. You had to get this separately. This is the only one that I actually have on Blu-ray. It's the only one I could find. And it was a pretty penny in the United States. They've probably re-released this since. But people really enjoy these, so maybe they're just like bought up a lot and hard to find. But yes, there is a double pack Blu-ray set of History of Trunks and Bardock, Father of Goku. So check that out. And after you have 9 box sets, 3 movie sets, and 1 double OVA pack, you can have all of Dragon Ball Z, as it were. Well, kind of. Kind of on a technicality, there's one more. That would be, of course, this gem that brought it all back, Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods. I kind of put this in the Dragon Ball Super category, but that wasn't a thing at the time. It was still Dragon Ball Z. Just the regular Blu-ray release here of Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods, where Goku fights Beerus. And you know what? I like this movie. I went to a theater at a limited release to watch this. And you know what? I enjoyed it. What I think about Dragon Ball Super, it's kind of all over the place. It doesn't quite have the heart of Dragon Ball Z, as in my opinion. But this first movie kind of really did. I was hyped to see the voice cast come back in America, the English voice cast. It had fantastic animation and great choreography, and it gave us a new form that was cool. I really like the Super Saiyan God, the red form. I hate the later one, but this movie was solid, and you could get this. This is common, but I guess this would be the last Dragon Ball Z media released. Or is it? Not quite. Yeah, there's one more, because guess what? Dragon Ball Z Return of Frieza, or I'm sorry, Resurrection F, still a silly title to me, is still under the Dragon Ball Z banner. And what we got here is the special edition of Dragon Ball Z Resurrection F, the movie, which was a follow-up to Battle of Gods. This one I'm not crazy about. It was kind of very over Frieza at this time. Like, I was done. Like, didn't seem like a threatening villain. And I'm not nuts about Super Saiyan Blue as a form. It just looks kind of silly to me. But the movie, yet again, I saw in theaters. And of course, I got this special edition release of it, which is a dual release special fee. There's one that's a Blu-ray, one that's a DVD. It came with these art cards, kind of like these propaganda posters for Frieza. Frieza's funny. I still don't think he's a big, like, it was odd that he was getting his own movie, like, coming back in Super, but it is funny that they have, like, Frieza Force propaganda videos, or art cards, as it were. So, you know, if you're looking to pick up Resurrection F and you want the limited edition, this is what you're going to get. You're going to get this nice box, nice, very blue box, these art cards, and the 2-disc set. Yeah, Resurrection F, not my favorite. Out of the 3 more recent movies, definitely my least favorite. What I do not have here, and is technically under the Dragon Ball Super banner, is the Broly movie, the new Gogeta vs. Broly movie that came out in late 2018, I want to say, or maybe 2019. The most recent Dragon Ball media. I thought that was fantastic. I love the animation on that. I thought them reintroducing Broly as an entirely different character was very cool to add him to the canon. And I look forward to the future of Dragon Ball. I have not started to collect Dragon Ball Super yet, but I'll probably end up picking that up. What is available from the same, kind of in the same format as these prior DVDs is Dragon Ball GT in one box set, all 64 episodes. I don't buy that. I don't like Dragon Ball GT. I don't like thinking about Dragon Ball GT. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. Super is not perfect, but I strongly believe that it's a lot better than what GT was going for. And yeah, that wraps it up. You guys, at least for Dragon Ball, the video's not done yet. But you guys wanted to know how much Dragon Ball I had? That's how much Dragon Ball I had. Quite a bit. Original series with movies, Z with movies, and some of the newer stuff too. But we must move on because there's a lot to get through. We're going to move on to another incredibly popular series. This series, back in around 2003, 2004, when it hit the US, just took over. When it came to Adult Swim late at night, it was akin to the vibe that Attack on Titan had a few years back, where it was breaking into the mainstream a bit. You'd see like non-anime fans kind of jump into this one. And that is, of course, the very famous Fullmetal Alchemist series. Yes, I'm a huge Fullmetal Alchemist fan. Whenever you look at like a list of any publications, like top 3 anime of all time, it's always either Cowboy Bebop, Fullmetal Alchemist, Evangelion in the 1, 2, 3 spot. Like, you can jump them up. And I see that. I really do. Fullmetal Alchemist is good for just about anyone. Like, whether you're into anime or not, it's just a good story. So I was, of course, hugely into it as it came out. And I bought these DVDs as they were releasing in the US. And I love the art for these. And each one of the discs, and of course, this has been re-released many, many times on Blu-ray. I have not rebought them on Blu-ray, which are actually kind of hard to come by now. I still have just these original DVDs, but it's an older series, so it's probably not hugely enhanced by the Blu-ray. But what I love is the discs are transmutation circles, each and every one of them. Each one of these also has a reversible cover. Like, this is the typical, you know, kind of back and front, but there's always like a solid art print on the inside. So if you just want the art, you can check it out. I don't do that because I like to keep these in order, and only this side has the numbers on them. But yeah, I got these as they came out, and I love Fullmetal Alchemist. So I'll go through each one of them. So you have Alphonse on the cover of 2. The original Fullmetal Alchemist is kind of almost forgotten at this point because it was not faithful to the original manga. That was never the plan. Only the first part of it, only the first half kind of sticks to the manga. But then it really deviates and goes into its own area. And a few years later, it was, of course, followed up by Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. And that's usually the one that's on the top anime list. I should clarify, you know, Brotherhood. But the original, in its time, was very beloved. And I think it fairly is still by fans. It's just that in comparison to Brotherhood, the lore makes less sense. Like, in this one, the lore kind of falls apart. Like, they planned for that to get caught up to the manga. So, like, there is some internal logic to everything. But it kind of, in comparison to Brotherhood, falls apart at the end. But I still enjoy it. The series is a bit more somber than the later Brotherhood. It has a different flavor to it. It's less action-y, more dialogue heavy, which might be seen as a negative, but it's more character-driven. It has a different soundtrack. So if you've seen Brotherhood but never seen the original, it's still worth watching. It differs greatly in the second half. Is it better than Brotherhood? Absolutely not. It's just different, and if you're a fan, you should check it out. And it still has great voice acting, great music. What little fight scenes there are still pretty fun. And I just had to have the whole set. And they kind of stretch this out. I think the original Full Metal is like a 51-episode series, so it's across 13 DVDs. One of the sets I got came with like this tin case with like that's like homunculi. I think there are a number of these that were all differently themed. I decided to get the homunculi one, and I keep the last 4 of the DVDs inside of it. Yeah, Full Metal was a really big breakout hit, and it's hard to remember. Like, it's hard to compare it to anything now. Like, Demon Slayer is probably the closest thing. Like, they played Fullmetal Alchemist movie in theaters in the US, and it wasn't as big of a hit, obviously, as Demon Slayer is, but it was pretty damn popular for anything that wasn't Dragon Ball Z to be, like, seen on t-shirts everywhere, you know? So, yeah, Full Metal, man. If you weren't there when it was coming out, it was big. And I happen to get the whole series right here. I might need to rebuy this on Blu-ray, but these DVDs are very special to me. This is right around the time I could start affording to buy these things, you know, in masse. And if you didn't know, the original series does not end with the last episode. This was bold. The last episode, as it were, is actually the movie, the Fullmetal Alchemist, the movie The Conqueror of Shambhala, right here on DVD. This is the true ending. Like, you had to wait after, you know, the last episode. I don't know if this actually aired on television, so if you just caught it on TV, kind of ends on a crazy cliffhanger. And this movie, it's out there, man. Like, it's got some heavy themes. If you don't, You know, spoilers, spoilers, spoilers. Skip to a little bit further in ahead. I'll keep this real quick, but this goes to like Nazi Germany, and this deals with like themes of racism. And they do some very interesting things in this movie. There's two worlds in this movie. One is more based on our reality, and like the color palette is duller because, you know, our world's kind of dull. And I don't know. I mean, it's a good movie. I don't know if I like it as much as an ending for Full Metal, you know, compared to Brotherhood. I think Brotherhood's ending is far better than this because it's very somber, but it's a solid movie you should watch if you want to finish the series. And I rebought this movie because I'm just like weird like that. It came in a like 6 months after the original Funimation release. They came out with like a limited edition with this really nice box that's like a book with like production notes in it, which I eat stuff like this. It's the same movie, but it's got like concept art and all this stuff. And what just fell out? Oh, art cards in like an envelope. Yeah, it was so weird. Like this wasn't the initial release for Full Metal. Like it was for the movie. Like, oh no, you buy it twice. And you know, some sucker will do it, and I'm that sucker. I did it. But yeah, there's two versions of the original Full Metal Alchemist movie, The Conqueror of Shambhala. I'm sure this is common, but the original Full Metal series is a little forgotten. So I just want to bring it some love because it's still really good. And lastly, in that series, this is like something that I've never met anyone else has. There's a bunch of Full Metal OVAs and shorts. Some were comical. One was made for like a ride at a theme park. These were mostly exclusive for Japan for years. And then finally, they decided to release this in the US. Like you could only find this on like pre-YouTube internet, like some of these videos before. There's some cool fights with homunculi. One of them is like fully comedic side stories. So this is the Full Metal Alchemist Premium OVA collection. So this is actually kind of hard to find. So if you can, please check it out. But it is cool for what it is. And it also has a reversible cover, which is more fun because there's like a chibi episode in this. So you can actually see all the Full Metal Alchemist characters in chibi mode. So if you want everything out of the original series, make sure you pick up the series of the movie and the OVA collection, often forgotten. Which of course leads me to the inevitable continuation of this video, which is Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. Yes. So if you don't know the difference, like I said, Full Metal Alchemist, the original, started before the original manga ended. So when they caught up to the manga, they deviated into their own story and ended it. This follows the original show to the letter, right? And these sets are the original manga to the letter. And these sets are very cool too. Each one has like individually packaged DVDs that are very beautiful. And I am of the opinion that Brotherhood is better than the original show, but it's not like it doesn't disregard that. It doesn't make that one irrelevant because it is so much better. But I would check out Brotherhood. If you only had time for one, I would check this out. This is 62 episodes, I believe. And it kind of assumes that you've already seen the original series. Like I said, the original series, the first half is manga accurate. This series assumes that you saw because everyone watched it back then. And it kind of breezes through that. It covers the first 30 episodes of the original series in 10 episodes. It's kind of like the Cliff Notes version. So, you know, you kind of want to watch both. And then it just goes in a completely different directions. Things make more sense. Cool characters are introduced. The ending is fantastic. This is one of the most beloved animes of all time for a reason, and I fully agree. You know, this is not an overrated series. This is right there. This has something for everyone. It's got actions. The fight scenes in this are so much better than the original. The choreography, the animation, it was a newer series, of course, so it looked a little better. And it fits together as tight as a drum, as much as like an HBO series. Like everything just works and comes together beautifully. And we haven't really quite had something like Full Metal Alchemist since then. Like it's not really a shonen. It's not really like a seinen. It's kind of something for everyone. You know, and it took over the world, and it had a female mangaka, female author. And it's kind of funny that you know, these famous stories about young men, the most famous of them, like Demon Slayer, are written by women. I wonder what that says about that, or if it says anything at all, but just an interesting note. But yeah, fantastic box art. These are DVDs. These have been released on Blu-ray many, many times because of the popularity of the series. But this is the version I have. Probably going to rebuy that one day too. But like the original series, there is also a movie, The Sacred Star of Milos, or Milos as it were. And this was released very limitedly in a very limited theaters in the United States, and I was able to catch this in theaters, and it's animated very differently than the TV series. It's very much a side story. This is not a continuation of that series. This, even if you've only seen the original Fullmetal Alchemist, this movie could work in that continuity too, because it is such a side story. Like, it is its own original story, but it's got really good animation, some cool scenes, and it's worth your time if you're a Fullmetal Alchemist fan. Not many people talk about this. Most people have forgotten about this, but there were two Fullmetal Alchemist movies. The first one being the conclusion of the original series, and then the side project, Sacred Star of Milos. And yeah, check it out. Not too much to say on this. I saw this in theaters in New York City on a freezing cold night. There was like 8 people in there, but it was fun to see. But even less talked about than that is this also had an OVA collection on Blu-ray, Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. Yet again, shorts, some comedic, some very much not, but basically side stories in the Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood universe that are definitely worth checking out if you're a fan. And yeah, I don't know what to say other than people always forget about this. I forgot I own this, and I've seen it. Some are funny, some are grim, and they kind of are, just like the other OVAs, an overview of the Fullmetal Alchemist universe, and some are just for fun. So check it out, the Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood OVA collection. And that's a lot of Fullmetal. This video is getting long. We're only 2 series in, and I got a while to go. But moving on. Everyone knows I'm a huge video game nerd. That's what this channel is. And everyone knows I'm a huge Final Fantasy nerd. And everyone knows that I'm also, in particular, a Final Fantasy VII nerd, because I am one of those people that love that particular game so much. I love the whole series, but I am one of those people who love 7, maybe a bit more than the rest. And with that being said, I am of the age that when I was turning 15, Final Fantasy VII Advent Children was releasing. If you don't know what that is, I don't know what to tell you. I'm starting to feel old. Final Fantasy VII Advent Children is a 3D CGI created movie that is a sequel to Final Fantasy VII. Now, I put it in the anime category because it's still animation, but when that movie was coming out, the Final Fantasy VII community, as it were, like, you know, this is still in the era of MySpace. We're just going nuts. The trailers were so cool, and it was delayed over and over and over, and then the English release was released over and over and over. But when it finally came out, I loved it when I was that age. Very edgy, you know, looking back at it now. But this was it. I waited online at the doors of a Best Buy to pick up the original DVD release in the US of Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. And I had seen the Japanese release online through some, like, download site, you know, some early internet site in 2003, 2004, but I still wanted to own this because I loved it. This movie is so weird. Now having Final Fantasy VII Remake and being a bit older, I see that the vibe of this is very different than Final Fantasy VII. It's a sequel 2 years later, taking place after the event, so you really do need to know the history of Final Fantasy VII to have a sliver of a clue of what's going on here. This is not for anybody. This is only for FF7 fans. But that's a pretty big audience in and of itself. At the time, the CG was fantastic. Coming after the Final Fantasy Spirits Within movie, which looked okay, but like it wasn't stylized. It didn't look amazing. Like fully CG movies were still an exciting concept. Advent Children had some amazing fight scenes back then. You go back and you look at the original version now, it looks pretty rough, kind of grayed out. The story's kind of all over the place. But it was really fun back then for me as a fan, as a 15-year-old, like, you know, checking that out. And I got this movie multiple times. I got it here. It came with my PSP, so I have it on UMD. Yeah, remember these? Fucking UMD. So if you don't want to play a Final Fantasy game like Crisis Core on your PSP, you can watch full-length animated feature Advent Children on your PSP. And much like with the Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood movie releasing a special edition a few months after its initial release, they came out with a limited edition box set of the DVD for Advent Children. I love this, and I needed this. I was such a mark to pick stuff up like this. And it's actually a really nice box with a cloud on the cover and the logo, the wolf logo that doesn't make sense on the back, and it opens like a book. And it has the same exact like DVD as the other, but this one, as if you can see on the top there, says limited edition, and this one does not. It's like the same thing. There's, I believe, an extra feature on this on the back, like some extra features on disc 2, but nothing crazy. But what it did come with is the script for the anime. So if you don't want to watch it, but you want to read the dialogue pictureless, Square's weird, you could. And then they had the novel. I believe this like is Denzel and like a number of the side characters get their own like little text book to like story to kind of coincide with this. Is so bizarre, like, you know. But what I really like, I used to have these hanging up. is the art cards here for these like classic images. And you've seen these images if you're a Final Fantasy fan. Like these were marketing materials literally everywhere. There are YouTubers with these pictures in their background. This artwork was like, or these renders as they were so popular. But it was cool, to have them up there. I mean, like this was everywhere from the year like 2003 to 2008, like just constantly. But Advent Children. Yeah, well, this too. This image, like everyone has seen that. If you've ever typed in Final Fantasy on Google, like you see this image still. And for what it's worth, Advent Children, the fight scene's still really fun. Like it's for those of you who've played the remake, you get a little bonus out of that if you've seen Advent Children. I won't go further into that for spoilers because that game is still kind of, coming out, like it's only part 1. So I fully suggest if you're a Final Fantasy fan that you check that out, especially if you're a big enough fan to have seen Advent Children. But that doesn't end it with Advent Children. Oh, no. A few years later, Tetsuya Nomura decided to go back to that movie. He said, the technology at the time wasn't there when this movie came out to make what I really wanted. He decided to make Advent Children Complete, which is the Blu-ray release of this movie. They actually sold this with PlayStation 3s as a bundled movie. So what is Advent Children Complete? Well, it's the movie, but it looks sharper, and it's at like a half hour longer with a lot more scenes, a lot more to do with my boy Zach in this. Much better version of the movie. If you haven't seen this and you want to, watch Complete. It is a better paced, even though it's longer, better paced, more complete, more comprehensible movie. Not only is it longer, the original scenes are touched up heavily. They look better. The fight scenes are better. There's blood. It's a much better version of the movie and the one I would suggest watching. But like I said, I'm a mark. So you'd think after buying this on Blu-ray, I'd be done. I'm not. I have it on 4K Blu-ray, which only released like a year or two ago, because yet again, I need to have everything Final Fantasy VII released. So this is the most recent version. They released a 4K Blu-ray version of Final Fantasy VII Advent Children Complete. What's wrong with me? Why do I have 5 versions of this like okay movie? I mean, look at this. This came out so recently that it's like you can watch the UHD, like the Ultra 4Ks on PS5. This movie is 15 years old, 16 years old. And they're like, yeah, no, let's like put it on the PS5 as a showpiece. That tells you something. But, this movie is important to the lore of video games in the sense that, like, that Cloud's outfit in this is everywhere. Like, in Kingdom Hearts 2, and it's the costume he wears. In Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, it's his alternate costume, the black cloak. It's very edgelordy, but it's very popular, I guess. And Sephiroth, his song was One-Winged Angel in Final Fantasy VII. He himself in his human form did not actually have one wing, but in Advent Children, he does. And like it kind of continued on from there, like that he physically had like one wing. But cool movies, check them out if you haven't. Fun. I mean, it's a very different vibe than Final Fantasy VII. It's like a little weird. I think the remake captured the vibe of Final Fantasy VII, the original game, better than Advent Children, but this is still an important piece of media. Now, sticking with the Final Fantasy and CG animated movies, I must bring up Final Fantasy XV Kingsglaive. Yes, another CG animated movie that I'm putting under the category of anime for 2 reasons. Number one, it comes with a few episodes, I think 5 or 6 episodes of the legitimately 2D animated Final Fantasy XV Brotherhood. What Final Fantasy VII 15 Brotherhood was a mini-series of anime that was released by Square Enix to expand and explain the world of Final Fantasy 15 to people before the games came out. Kind of an in-depth look at all the main characters of like Noctis, Ignis, Gladiolus, so on and so forth. It's not bad. It's like, it's definitely like a side project. But the meat of this is the Kingsglaive movie, which is what you're looking at, which is another CG animated movie that, much like in the vein of Advent Children. Now, it's okay. It's not bad. It takes the start of the movie is the character Nox. It's been a while since I've seen this, and it is a like minute to minute prequel with Final Fantasy 15. Like this ends when 15 begins, and the biggest issue is like the movie's okay. It's high fantasy. Its vibe is a little bit different. Like the powers work a little bit differently, like the magic than it does in the game. I always noticed, but my gripe with this is. For Kingsglaive in particular, maybe not as much the Brotherhood anime, you need to watch this to fully understand the lore of Final Fantasy 15. I don't care if you played 15 and didn't watch this, you don't actually know what's going on in that game unless you watch this. So much so that there is a clip of this movie's, I guess you'd say climax in 15. They actually like cut away to a scene. It's like animated differently. It's animated like this in the game. It's kind of like an advertisement saying, go watch this if you want to know what happens. Like the whole crux of the plot twist because of what happens in Kingsglaive. And that bothers me because you did not get this movie with the game, only if you got the deluxe edition. I bought this separately a few months before the game came out. They were really hyping it. It bothers me that there was such a media empire trying to be created around Final Fantasy 15. It's not a game complete in at least story aspects in of itself. You need to watch this. You need to watch Brotherhood. You could still very much enjoy the game without watching this. But if you really wanted to get it all, the main villain of 15, you barely see him. He appears more in this movie than he does in that game. As the focus is mostly on Noctis in the game itself. Like the Emperor, I'll say, like, you know, one of the main villains. He's in this all the time, but you wouldn't know he was if you just played the game. But what you see in front of you is a limited edition of this, the Steelbook. Very nice Steelbook. Double set. Like they can see, I keep the little plastic, like the paper things on it. First disc is Kingsglaive. Back disc is Brotherhood. I do not believe that the standard release of this comes with Brotherhood. That only came with this limited edition Steelbook. I've seen the price on this go up quite a bit, but it's got a very nice cover. And I would suggest checking it out if you're a fan of 15 or if you're looking to get into 15. This is what you need. This is not tertiary material. This is the beginning of that story. It's so weird. I really hope they don't do that with Final Fantasy 16. But let's get away from all this CG stuff. Let's get back to the 2D stuff. Let's get back to real anime, as some would say. Let's get back to one of the most famous and beloved anime of all time, and one that I definitely got the most questions about in my last video because I had so many Gainax anime. Gunbuster, Gurren Lagann, Fooly Cooly, which I love. Let's talk about, not the OG, you know, there's Royal Wings and Gunbusters, those are the OG, but let's talk about the one that really put Gainax on the map, that made it a phenomenon and is the largest franchise that Gainax has. Let's talk about Neon Genesis Evangelion. Yeah. If you guys didn't know, if you haven't seen, I just did a prior video on this release. Evangelion, I love. I think that many newcomers to anime and younger fans won't understand what this is. It's not a mecha anime in traditional sense. It's very introspective. It's very weird. It's watching a man's depression. The director Hideaki Anno, one of the greatest anime creators of all time, one of Miyazaki's understudies, students, if you will. Kind of his depression unfold on paper, told through the medium of a mecha anime. Some people say it's boring, it's weird, it's annoying, but like there's a vibe to this. Like this was 90s anime, you know, kind of like one of the more hardcore anime that, like, you know, below the veneer of like something more common like a Dragon Ball Z. There's a vibe to this that just isn't found in anime today. It takes its time. The focus isn't on the robot action. It's on the character interactions. And yes, it's very histrionic, and a lot of it is just put in there to look cool. There's a lot of Christian and Jewish imagery put in, like, oh, is there a deeper meaning? No, it's meant to be speculative. Much like something like Blade Runner or Dark Souls. It's not fully meant to be 100% understood, which sounds pretentious, but I love that about it. It's fun to like read wikis and like, you know, theorize with other fans and kind of create your own lore. And it creates like, you know, there's spin-off video games and all this. I love it. I'm going too long on that. But what is this release? I recently did an unboxing of this release because this is brand new. This is the original series just released in the United States again, because you know what? The DVD, the Platinum box set, which is the most famous version of Evangelion's like releases in the US, quite expensive now. And this was not available in the United States for quite a while. But recently there was a acquisition of G Kids of Evangelion as a franchise, and they decided to physically release it. Now, what you are seeing here of this 26 episode series, want to be specific and not get this wrong. There are multiple English dubs of Evangelion, and there are multiple versions of a few episodes known as director's cuts. So the last 4 episodes of Evangelion have director's cuts that are longer and have slightly different footage. What you are getting in this set, the G Kids most recent release, are those director cuts episodes. There's no option, as far as I know, to watch the original versions on there. Take that as you will. But I'm actually a fan of the dub of Evangelion. And I go back between saying Evangelion, it's Evangelion. I know, forgive me. Don't chop my head off. I know people get antsy about that. I'm not one of those people that say Naruto. It's Naruto. I know it's Evangelion. But even though Eve, like, whatever. The next thing I want to mention is there are multiple dubs of Evangelion. There is the older Gainax dub. That was the one that, you get on the prior DVDs. That was aired on Adult Swim. That is the dub that I'm most familiar with and that I enjoy the most. It's great in Japanese, but I'm very enamored with like Spike Spencer's voice and all them. Like those are who I associate Shinji and all the characters like Misato with. I like their English voices. Now it was 2 years ago, Netflix released Evangelion on their out to stream, and it had a new English dub. I'm not a fan of that dub at all. I'm not going to be nasty about it, but I think they kind of butcher the English dub of that. The choices, like it was, of what they call certain things and the flow of everything, and like just not my thing. So if you get the regular edition of this, which is $40, it only has that Netflix dub. And this is kind of ransomware in a way. I'm not a fan of how they did this. If you want that original English dub, you need to get this set. This set has both the Netflix English dub and the original English dub. Keep that in mind. This is not cheap though. This is over $100 US. It was kind of, I hate that about it, but it is what it is. This also has the Evangelion, like the two pseudo movies, the Death and Rebirth and the End of Evangelion, much like Fullmetal Alchemist. Evangelion's true ending is a movie that takes place after the series. Some would say it replaces the last two episodes. I think they coincide, whatever. But this limited edition is really nice. As you can see, it has this beautiful box. And you can see more of this on my unboxing video that I recently did for this. But, art book, history book, some fantastic art cards that are hidden in there that are hard to get out, so I'm not going to take out. But this is the limited edition G-Kids release of Evangelion. There's that's, I think, $100 US. There's a cheaper version for like 42, but that does not have that original English stuff. But if you're a sub watcher for this show, have at it. You can get either version, and it looks fantastic. Some older anime don't look fantastic on Blu-ray or doesn't make any difference. I think this is a really good Blu-ray cut because the original DVD set, that platinum set's like $600, and I ain't got it like that. So check this out, the G-Kids release of Evangelion. And if you have never watched this series, go in with no expectations and enjoy it. And if you don't, well, it's not for you. Which is something I can also say about the next set of physical media I want to talk about, and that is, of course, the rebuilds of Evangelion. Oh, these are controversial in so many ways. So, what are these? Well, in 2007, the first one of these are movies, came out. It is a retelling of the Evangelion series in the form of 4 movies that took 14 years to come out in total. And originally what they were was they followed the series very closely. It was kind of a faster version of the series being retold with new animation styles. And I got to tell you, I don't care what you think about these movies narratively. The animation's fantastic. This original one, Evangelion, You Are Not Alone. They each have funny titles like this. I have this both on Blu-ray and DVD. The limited edition of the DVD came out well before the Blu-ray because, like I said, this movie launched in 2007. I can't believe it's been 15 years since this came out. And I believe this original release came out in 2009. So Blu-ray really hadn't taken over completely yet. Like DVD was still a very, a legitimate media that wasn't fully replaced yet. And this just has like cool art books. But the first movie very much follows the beginning of the series. It kind of trims the fat, speeds it up, gives it amazing animation. Truly, like I said, to this day, 15 years later, even the first movie has fantastic animation. And if you don't find the beginning of the series to your liking, maybe it's too slow, this movie may be more to your liking. It's more modern, it's a little quicker. I love it. Some fans didn't understand why they were just redoing it and trimming it. Some fans really have an issue with this, but I don't. I don't think it injured it at all. It did have the original, creators doing it. It's their project to do it with. What you're seeing, by the way, you see that number 111, that's the Blu-ray cut. It's a little different than the theatrical cut, which I believe is an extra on one of the discs here for like the Blu-ray and DVD. It's like just like a minute longer and it's sharper looking, better CG. But like I said, the first movie covers the first couple episodes of the series very closely. But then this came out in 2007 originally in Japan. In 2009 in Japan, this came out. Evangelion, You Cannot Advance. Yet again, I have 2 versions of this. The re-released Blu-ray of it and the the release of the Blu-ray on it and the original DVD version of it in this very loud orange box. Oh, I love this little book opening. What's that say? In the war between heaven and earth, salvation is machine. This movie starts to deviate heavily from the TV show in a very left turn. This just goes off the rails. This movie has some of the coolest action to this day I have ever seen in a mecha anime. Oh, look at this. For those some creepypasta on the back of this. You know what this is, you fans, And I love this one. It introduced a new character that's very controversial on the front, Mari. I have no opinions on Mari. She's like a non-factor to me. But some of the sequences of the Ava's fighting the angel monsters is some of the coolest to this day I've ever seen. The weight in these, one thing in the Evangelion combat from the series and this, the robots and the monsters have weight, like physical mass. You feel the impact of these huge beings. And I think this movie exemplified that. And this came out in 2009. It felt like it was going to be every 2 years, I think, was the original plan for these 4 movies. And there was only going to be 3. There was going to be a double feature, but things changed after this. Apparently, after the second movie, the director, Hideaki Anno, fell into depression. There were delays, there were issues. And eventually, though, 3 years later, in 2012, we got this, Evangelion 3, You Cannot Redo. And this had such a rocky development. I love the cover of this. Kaoru and Shinji. I love Kaoru, one of my favorite characters. I'm not a shipper. I just think he's a cool character. Cool art book came with this edition. This only came out on this Blu-ray set. I believe this has been re-released ever since. But like I said, this came out in 2012 in Japan. And this one is controversial. This is probably the weakest of the 3. It's very introspective, very little action, and it's weird. I won't go into too many spoilers, but and much like in the rest of Evangelion, as much as Shinji, the main character, knows, there's not any exposition. He kind of goes through things not knowing what's going on because it's happening so fast, and you, the viewer, are right there with him. And things are never fully explained in Eva, and it's always kind of confusing in a way. But this one in particular. But it has some fantastic visuals and some cool motifs, and it's very meta, and I enjoy it. It is my least favorite of them, but it's still worth checking out. You got to watch it. These are a continuous series of movies. But this is an interesting release. Came out in 2012 and was dubbed and was screened in, I believe, anime, a few anime expos. I believe Anime Boston. I saw that original dub, and in a theater. But the creators did not like that dub, so they scrubbed that dub. That dub does not exist anymore, and it took years for them to redub it with the same cast, but it was redubbed again. So this movie has a secret dub that someone probably has a cam video of from 2013. And this Blu-ray did not come to the United States. The official release of the Blu-ray came out 4 years later, I believe 2016. So just so I had to clarify, this came out in 2007 in Japan, and the Blu-ray came into America 2009. So it was always a 2-year delay. Same thing with this. 2009 release in Japan, 2011 release, late 2010 maybe in the US. This was 4 years in between the original release and the American release because they had to redub it. And they didn't change much, but they changed enough that you notice. And then 2012, well, my God, that's 10 years ago. Where's the 4th movie? Well, unfortunately, I don't own that physically because there is no physical release of that at the moment. And there's no announcement of a physical release of that at the moment in the US. And that really breaks my heart. It finally released in August 2021 in the United States and not much earlier, I believe March in Japan. After 9 years from this movie, from 2012 to 2021, we finally got the finale. I loved it. It's currently streaming on Amazon Prime. It is made for Evangelion fans. It is made for people who love out there crazy anime who don't. It's not about making sense. It's about a vibe. It's about a feeling. And I know that sounds incredibly pretentious, but I think it was a great send-off to Eva. It was a movie that I waited 9 years for. Just to put that in perspective, the first one came out in 2007. I was in my freshman year of college. Now I'm a full-grown man, still a man boy, but a man nonetheless. And I just finished this. It was the anime that I waited the longest for. The story that I had waited the longest for. 14 years from the beginning to the end, I waited for news constantly from this series, and it finally had a finale. And it felt very personal. It felt very special to finally have that come. It was delayed due to the director's depression after the third movie. It was then further delayed by his involvement with Shin Godzilla, the fantastic Japanese movie that he was selected to do after finishing Evangelion 3, which helped drag him out of depression, along with, hearsay says, Hayao Miyazaki's encouragement. And he finished the movie, and he said he enjoyed it. I enjoyed it as a fan. And Eva is not my favorite anime, but I believe it is one of the most important anime of all time. And it was great to be there from the beginning to the end and just wait for those news tidbits and to actually happen, because it didn't feel like it was going to happen for a long time. But yeah, that's the Eva collection. Check out the rebuilds, check out the original series, and let's hope to God, and please let me know if you've heard or if you think there's going to be a release for the final Evangelion movie rebuild for 3.0 plus 1.0 Thrice Upon a Time. The craziest title for an anime movie, and that's saying something. But we must move on. We are going to move on to something that is very near and dear to my heart, something that I came to a little late, but still before it kind of caught the huge wave of attention it's currently getting, and that is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Yes, my friends, this is a JoJo's reference. I love this manga, this show, everything about JoJo to death. Quick introduction to me and JoJo. I played the Dreamcast game back. I collect Dreamcast games. If you didn't know, of course, I collect all games. And when I played that, I had no idea who any of those characters were. I just thought it was a cool fighting game by Capcom. But then they released JoJo's Bizarre Adventure All-Star Battle on PlayStation 3 as a fighting game, which was an Amazon.com physical exclusive. I'm like, what is this JoJo thing going on? And I had heard that an anime was starting. I knew it was a manga. I never read the manga. But right before the current anime show of season 3, season 1 and 2, like this came out. I'm like, what is this? So I looked into it. I watched the first season of JoJo, which is what you see in front of you, and I was in. I read the entire manga over 6 months, all the way to the end. And that was back in 2014, I want to say. Jesus, I've been into JoJo for 7 or 8 years. And it's been great to watch JoJo kind of explode in popularity, because it really does deserve it. That anime is fantastic. It's very faithful to the manga. But what do we have here? Well, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Limited Edition Box Set Part 1. Season 1, as it were. So what is this? If you don't know, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is essentially about a lineage of the Joestar family throughout the years, fighting various supernatural evils in the most flamboyant way possible. I love JoJo. It is so over the top and self-aware and referential to cultural things. Like all the characters have some type of musical reference in their name, and is a huge fan of particularly rock and roll history. To have characters named AC/DC, Wham, Dio, like these are all the way up to like Green Day and Sex Pistols. I love it to death. And each generation gets its own part. So the first JoJo is part 1. His grandson is part 2. His great-grandson is part 3, so on and so forth. So that's how it's diced up. Season 1 of the anime, which is what I'm holding in front of you, is parts 1 and 2. The first Joestar, Jonathan Joestar, and his grandson, Joseph Joestar. It's short. Their parts are short. This is 26 episodes, the first season. And what I have here, the limited edition, as you can see, that's Jonathan in the front and his grandson in the background, Joseph. And it's the first 26 episodes of that series with these very flashy discs, which I love. And it's a great play. Like a lot of people, like the first opening of JoJo is kind of slow, but it's like a stage play. It's like a fucking burlesque stage. It's very audacious and out there, and I love it, with vampires. And it came with these art cards, which, I didn't even open these because I'm just sick of art cards getting all over the place. And then, you have some, you have an art book, which actually really draws sketches from. Like, there's it is truly a bizarre adventure. But it's, like I said, it's flashy and flamboyant and stylish. It's not trying to be high art, which makes it high art. Like, it's clearly style over substance in the way that Blade Runner is. But at the same time, like, it's so much that it has meaning. It's so weird. But it's original. Let me tell you. I can't even begin to go over JoJo, like the powers and all that in this video without it being another hour longer. But JoJo, if you're looking for something else, JoJo truly is a bizarre, awesome adventure. So I decided to continue that bizarre adventure. If you will, the most popular JoJo part is part 3, with the most iconic character, kind of the Wolverine of the franchise, being right here. That's Jotaro or Jotaro Kujo. And this is the beginning of set 2, season 2, which is very long. It's like 48 episodes, so it's actually 2 box sets. The second one, as you can see, I just received, haven't opened that one yet. This is the adventures of Jotaro Kujo and the Stardust Crusaders, as this part is known this season in the manga. And yet again, fantastic. JoJo really picked up steam here. I can see why. It's very different, and I love it. More flamboyant discs on this Blu-ray set. These are the limited editions that I bought right off rightstuff.com, rightstuffanime.com. And man, part 3, like once JoJo gets here, starts getting here, it gets wacky, and I loved it. I love all the JoJo parts. If I had to say what my favorite ones were, that's tough, man. 3 and 4. I love 7. I can't tell. 3, 4, 7 maybe. In no particular order, those 3 are my favorite. JoJo is a series I prefer in Japanese. And for those of you who just streamed this or watched it online, keep in mind, one of the things that JoJo did, and you can actually watch YouTube videos on this, is that they enhanced the animation on the Blu-ray for this. It's very cool. They go back in JoJo and touch it up after it's streamed and make the Blu-ray release, the physical release, look a little better if they missed anything in the original broadcast, which is very much appreciated. It makes it worth buying. So, you know, if you were like, oh, I love JoJo, I love watching it all the time streaming, pick up the Blu-ray, support the show, and you get a slightly better version. I prefer JoJo dubbed, absolutely. Subbed, I'm sorry. I prefer watching it in its original Japanese sub. And the only problem with it, with these releases, is the subtitles and in the dub, the characters are all named after real rock bands, mostly English and American rock bands. Like I said, Sex Pistols, Green Day, so on and so forth. There's a character, like I said, just named AC/DC, like Dire and Straits, Metallica. They can't actually call the characters that in the U.S. and in the Western world for copyright reasons. So they have to come up with like these really silly names for all the characters. Like, you know, the most famous one is what? Sticky Fingers, the album becoming Zipper Man. And that's what shows here. Like, and I know that's a tough thing for new viewers to understand, like new viewers of this. But if you were to read like the original manga scans online or watch the show online, they use that original naming. So like 2 people can know one character by 2 very different names. The original name and then the Western name, because for copyright reasons in the West, they couldn't use those names. But it's not a huge deal. But yes, these sets are beautiful. They're touched up from the original broadcast. And I believe they're all the way up to season 5, like part 5 on Blu-ray. Part 6 is now currently streaming on Netflix at the moment, and I'm sure that'll come to Blu-ray too. I'm happy that even though these are on multiple streaming services like Funimation, Crunchyroll, VRV, and Netflix, they are still coming out physically, because guys like me will buy it. And I will be doing more videos on JoJo as we go forward, because I have tons of JoJo media, from clothing to art books, tons of figures, because JoJo has the best toys in the anime world. Medico's figures. We'll be going over that later. But we must move on from JoJo, even though it is very hard to move on from JoJo, to our last franchise of the night in this part 2 video. Now, in more prior years, isekai anime is becoming, or at least was, incredibly popular. The concept of an anime where a character is whisked away to another world, whether it be like Peter Pan style, where they actually go somewhere else, like, you know, an early example of that would be Inuyasha, or whether they're trapped in a video game, like either a literal video game or Matrix style. And I'm not a huge fan of the predominance of that genre. I think it's well-worn. Like Sword Art Online just ain't it for me, or, you know, Log Horizon, or all that stuff, or Overlord. Not to say that there's anything wrong if you like those, but they're not for me, because I grew up in the age with the OG of that in the anime form. Of course, like, you could call fucking Peter Pan an isekai, but getting trapped in a video game, one of the very first, and at least the biggest in the early days, around 2002, was this bad boy here, and that is the Dot Hack franchise. Now, for those of you who have watched my gaming collection videos, you'll know that I own all the Dot Hack games that came to the West, the franchise. What Dot Hack is, and that is how you say it. Some people just say hack. But if you look at the title here, it is Dot Hack, that word Dot Hack in the center of the little like period right there. Dot Hack was the attempt by Namco, Bandai Namco at the time, and CyberConnect, a subsidiary, like a smaller company, to make a media franchise that combined anime, video games, manga, and light novels into one overall huge story, to varying levels of success. It wasn't, not all of the media was published all over the world, so it was hard to get access to chunks, essential chunks of the story. But one of the first parts of this was the original .hack sign series. So how you pronounce this, for those who don't know. Like I said, .hack, you don't like mind the dashes, and you say the word that's after it. So this is .hack sign. This originally aired on Toonami in the United States and was decently popular, but it's not an action series. This whole series is centered around a video game, an MMO VR game called The World, that players fall into a coma when they go into. They get trapped in the game sometimes. And it's about AI and like what it is to be human and interact. Keep in mind, this day came out before World of Warcraft. Like this came out in the EverQuest days. So this is pretty early on before MMOs were like really taking over the world and all that. So it was kind of like very fascinating realm of sci-fi stuff. It's funny, if you go back and watch this, the people in the game, like in the anime, when you see them outside the game, they're wearing what looks like a PlayStation VR headset with a controller that's very similar to a PlayStation headset. And this series, what it is, it's really a lead-in to the original video game quadrilogy, the first 4 games on the PlayStation 2 that started with .hack Infection. .hack sign leads you into that. It is meant as a preamble to kind of guide you around in the world, which is the name of the game in .hack, and prepare you for it. While the cast is very different, this anime has its own cast. They do appear in the game. And the end of this series is on a cliffhanger. It doesn't have like an ending. It leads into the .hack video games, which is an interesting concept because that's taking a lot. That's saying that you not only, like, you the viewer, when you watch this, that you have a PlayStation 2 and you're interested in buying that game or capable of buying that game. That's risky because, you know, I'm sure some regions didn't get that. Some people didn't have that information. Like, what's the connection? They both say .hack, but what comes first? And it was a lot to expect from people in the early 2000s with limited information access on the internet. But regardless, the franchise itself, .hack sign. I got these on DVD, and I don't believe these have been re-released on Blu-ray in any capacity. Like I said, it wasn't hugely popular, but I loved it. It is very slow-paced. This is not an action anime. This is a dialogue-heavy anime. But it really kind of speaks. It doesn't condescend. There are some very heavy themes about escaping into a game world because you have an abusive home life, what it is to interact with someone online that you don't know. Someone could be your friend online, but you don't know them outside, so how much should you really invest in them? Some very realistic themes without having too many flights of fancy that I think are more popular, like the power fantasies and a lot more popular video game isekai anime. And I really enjoyed that. But one thing that cannot be said is that the quality of the music and animation, this is bad. It's fantastic. This is a beautiful series with some really good designs. And the soundtrack, one of the greatest soundtracks I've ever heard. And that stays true for the games too. The games are JRPGs. JRPGs typically have good music, but this series blows it out of the water. It is one of the best soundtracks I've ever heard. I own this soundtrack. Each one of these Blu-rays or these DVDs came with a bonus. Typically, it was one of the soundtracks. Very hard to come by now. But one I do want to draw attention to is this last, the Volume 6. Like I said, this 25, 26 episode series. This was the last Volume 6. This limited edition came with a bonus disc. And this disc, very important. What this disc had was a conclusion to the first saga of .hack. So what I mean is, how you're supposed to go through this is, you watch the first 26 episodes, then you play all 4 games and beat them, then you come back and you watch the episode that's on this disc. This disc was not with the standard release and was not aired on television. So like it has all the characters from the game and the anime meet up in a big victory party after saving, you know, the digital world and the real world, what have you. So if you want like everything physically, I think that's the only way to get it. You got to get the .hack anime DVDs I have here in the limited edition of the show of Volume 6 right here. And I love this show. I mean, the music, the character designs, the art, very subtle, not bombastic at all, not for everybody. And really, like I said, it's just kind of a preamble for the games. But there's just something about it, very hypnotic. You watch this one late at night, on a cold winter night, or a hot summer night, as it were, and just listen to the music, listen to the characters talk, because there's always some drop-dead gorgeous background going on. The .hack never caught on in the West as it should, and maybe not even in Japan. I know it was fairly popular, and there's still some kind of strings of it still existing, like in card games and things like that, and cell phone games. But it never took off the way it should because it was just hard to access back in 2002, 2003, 2004. People didn't know how to follow this. And not all, there were books that tied in, and some of those didn't get published, but generally, when you look into especially the earlier .hack stuff and the video games, they're pretty damn good. So check it out. And it all starts here. The earliest thing that you could check out for the anime anyway, the first anime for this series, .hack sign. I'd say it's an isekai classic, and it kind of steps on all those other video game animes in terms of just sheer style. That's my opinion. I don't want to get too into it. But this was a franchise, so they continued on with this. Namco Bandai Namco. I always get that mixed up. Bankai Namco. You know, after the 4 games, after you watch .hack sign, beat the games, you could watch .hack Legend of the Twilight. This is weird. This was actually aired on television, but not on Toonami. This was aired like late at night and early in the morning, like between like 1 a.m. and 6:30 a.m. This would show up. This is a short 13-episode series with, like, as you can see, it's a much more cutesy series. I don't think this has ever been re-released. And this is under the Anime Legends brand that was a thing for a while. It's a stretch to call this a legend, but it's cute. You get to see some of the characters from the prior series, and it's very like lighthearted, and the vibe's kind of all over the place. I just got it because it was .hack. But it's not terrible. It's just not important to the franchise. There was a manga that was, this is based off, but it's totally different than the manga. It follows a different storyline. This is just like an oddity. .hack Legend of the Twilight, something I saw, and since it has .hack on it, I picked it up. Very forgotten, but not bad. It's just like a nothing, a colorful nothing. So we'll move on. But yeah, it takes place after quarantine. A few years later, still on the PS2, they decided to do a trilogy of sequel games called .hack GU, the next phase of .hack. It stood for many things, GU, grow up, and like a million other things, but GU is it. But much like with the original series, Bandai released a preamble series that were to lead you up to the .hack GU trilogy, and that was this series right here, which I have the box set for, .hack Roots. Now, this yet again aired very early in the United States, like early in the morning. Focused on a new cast of characters taking place in like a new version of the game, pretty separate from the original, but with very heavy ties to it. I picked these up as these came out. This series is not as strong as .hack sign in my opinion, but I love the .hack GU games, so I picked these up so I'd really understand, so I'd have a better understanding of the world. And yeah, this like .hack sign can somewhat stand out as its own, as an artistic piece, separate from its games. Like, it's still good on its own merits. This is just a preamble to .hack GU in my eyes. Like, it is really just for hardcore fans of that video game who want to get into it or have beaten it and want to get more info on it. But it leads right up, yet again, like the ending of this anime is the beginning of that game. And it gives you a little bit more insight, but it was cool, and I love .hack, so I picked it up. The first release came with this Blu-ray. Fantastic soundtrack yet again, not as good as .hack Sense or the games. .hack GU has an incredible soundtrack, but Roots seemed kind of fairly low effort. I think even though this came out in like 2006, 7, or 8, it has worse animation than on .hack Sign, but not bad by any means. It still has good design. It's very talky yet again, but I don't think it has the beauty and the music to kind of carry it the way that .hack Sign did. But, you know, it's still a piece of the .hack franchise, and .hack is such a weird thing because if it came out today, like if it came out like right before Sword Art or any of that stuff, like it probably would have taken off. It was just kind of, I hate using this term, but a little bit ahead of its time, and it was more elegant with it in a lot of ways. It wasn't, you know, it's always weird to me when you make an anime about a bunch of people playing a video game. Like, I can't get the image of someone, like, no matter what the character is doing on screen, they're still just doing this with a VR headset on or whatever. Like, even in like Ready Player One, like it's a funny image to me. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you're watching a stream, technically. You're watching someone's gameplay footage. But .hack did it in a way that kind of addressed it, so it wasn't like cringy, at least the earlier .hack stuff. And I really enjoyed it. But we have a little bit more to go on with. We had another CG movie, and this is kind of a rare release. Like, this was kind of hard to hunt down. We have .hack GU Trilogy. So what is this? This is weird, is what it is. After the .hack GU trilogy ended, Namco released this CG movie that was like a 90-minute, it's not long, 131 minutes. This is over 2 hours. Alternate retelling of those games. What? What are you saying? So it's the story of those 3 games put into a 2-hour movie, but told differently. Like, events unfold differently. And it's odd. And for anyone, I tried to show this to somebody who hadn't played the games. They almost threw up in their mouth. Like, the animation is great and the fight scenes are fantastic. But if you don't play those games, you're probably not going to understand a damn thing about this. Maybe read a wiki about the games before this, because it's literally like the Cliff Notes version. but it looks like something they just had fun with. Like it's not like Advent Children where it's super high budget, but it's kind of like a game cutscene that's stretched into 2 hours. But you know, it's odd. I love the Dot Hack GU game so much. I love that world. I picked this up. I enjoyed it as a super hardcore fan. But it's just something that's often forgot about. Like, yeah, Dot Hack made like a CG movie. Dot Hack Trilogy, as it's known. Worth checking out. I love Haseo, my boy Haseo on there, and Adelie and Ovan. Like, check it out if you're a huge Dot Hack fan. And just as like, if you're a fan of like CG anime that doesn't look like trash, like this is pretty good and often forgotten about. And leading on to the last thing that I forgot I own this, which is Dot Hack Quantum, which takes place. It's an even smaller series. It takes place even later than that. Like this takes place way in the future of the Dot Hack franchise, like a few years after. And I've watched this and totally forgotten it. This is where Dot Hack kind of fell off for me. I have seen this. I cannot recall what happens. The ties to the prior series are very loose. It's not bad. It's not ugly. I'll tell you that. But it's a fun, like, quick series that you can check out that never caught much traction. That's Dot Hack Quantum, which was the last, as far as I know, physically released anime for Dot Hack in this series. And that's kind of why I got it. I just wanted to have all the Dot Hack anime physically that I could, because Dot Hack was a very small community of fans, but it was a very passionate community of fans. Like, I enjoyed it. I loved it. Everyone I know plays these games and watches anime, love it. And you get bits of lore from everything. It's very, like, you have to have the money, which is annoying, but like you got to get the books and the, you know, and the manga and all this stuff. It's fun to kind of piece it together because you can look at things retrospectively and they may make more sense and they prep you for what was ever next. Unfortunately, they're not making many more Dot Hack things now. As of right now, the GU remaster, which came to PS4 back in 2017, is coming to Switch, so it's not fully dead, but Dot Hack is pretty much very much over, I would say, in terms of brand new releases, which is a shame because it was fantastic. But out of all those anime, I'd say check out Dot Hack Sign. That's the one to check out. It's not to be forgotten. And that finally does it. And that for the part 2 of the overlook of my anime collection. And Jesus, we hit some biggies today, didn't we, guys? Thank you for joining me for that. If you stuck around for the whole thing, from Dragon Ball Z, and Super, and Fullmetal, Brotherhood, JoJo, Eva, Final Fantasy, Dot Hack. These are some big franchises we hit today, and I had a blast going through all of this. And of course, it takes a while for me to put this together, but I guarantee you that part 3 will be coming a lot sooner than part 2 did. And like I said, let me know, what do you think of these anime? Are these some of your favorites? Do you hate these? I don't care. I love hearing it. It's all for fun. It's all opinions. And that's what I want this to be, a streak where we can just talk about anime. If you have any questions about any of these sets, please let me know. If you have any information about future releases of these sets, please let me know. And I'll respond to you as quickly as I can because I truly love doing this. Now, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to put these all back on the shelf and drag off another set just as big for part 3. So please look forward to that. Like I said, leave all your anime comments below. Please check back for part 3 as soon as you can. Please like and subscribe if you've liked what you've seen. And like I said, join me for the next one. My name is Mike. This has been Chip Damage, and have a great night. Thank you so